This week we feature the humpback whale, one of the great comeback stories of our times. Here at Eden on the New South Wales far south coast, hunters almost wiped them out to the point of extinction. Now their numbers are coming back. The humpbacks begin their annual migration in the Antarctic, feeding on schools of krill during the southern summer. Compared to other whale species, the humpbacks are fat and relatively slow swimmers, which has made them ideal targets for hunters. In terms of behaviour, they're one of the most active whales. They're also remarkably curious and will surface close to travellers. It's a case of who's checking out who in these remarkable encounters. Come the southern winter, and some 8,000 whales will have swum north here to the Great Barrier Reef. This is where they'll mate and calve, before their migration cycle takes them back south in the southern spring. Their major stopping off point being the Eden area, their last land and feeding ground before the Antarctic. It's this bay, Twofold Bay, out of Eden, that's seen so much action with the humpback whales. Now, the population 2 centuries ago was estimated to be around 25,000. Several whaling stations were located on these shores, and the whale almost became extinct because of savage hunting. Numbers have now come back to an estimated 8,000. Memories of that savage hunting are evoked in the Eden Museum. On prominent display is the 80-year-old skeleton of an orca, Old Tom, who's said to have led a pod of killer whales to help round up the humpbacks for the local fishermen. These days, researchers and travellers take to the waters off Eden in a far more friendly pursuit. The humpbacks are in abundance here in October, which is why a team of researchers has come here to study their markings and behaviours. Leading the Pacific Whale Foundation is Greg Kaufman.
Yeah, humpback whales, when they're full grown, are about 15 meters long. They weigh about 40 tons. The calves are between 3 and 5 meters long at birth and weigh about a ton to a ton and a half. Well, there's a variety of behaviors that we see. The most spectacular that everybody wants to see is the breach, where the animal jumps nearly completely out of the water. We'll see them throw their tails out of the water, and that's a peduncle slap. They'll slap their tails on the water surface. Humpback whales have the largest pec fins of any great whale. They're about a third of the length of their body, or about 5 meters long. So you'll see them slap their pec fins on the water as well. All the behaviors have a variety of meanings, and they occur in a variety of social contexts, so you can't really just generalize at the time. Eden is a critically important area and a developing area in terms of humpback whale migration, because it's an area that we find them feeding, and it's the only area in the world that we know that they feed consistently on their migration. They're clearly on their way to Antarctica to feed, but there is a segment of the population that will come here and feed.
The researchers today are gathering data on the whale's biology, migratory trends, numbers and distribution patterns. Director of Research is Quincy Gibson.
So we have a number of researchers that work on our team, and we alternate the positions, and so the primary position is that of photographer. And so her main goal is to get photos of the undersides of the whale's flukes, because that's what we use to tell the whales apart.
Oh, there you go. 5 flukes of the mom, 1 lateral fluke of the calf.
And then we have a recorder, which is what I'm doing today, and so we keep track of what the photos contain and where they were recorded. And so I also have the GPS, and so we're doing latitude and longitude for each of the photos as well. And so the main purpose is to look at the photo identification of the whales, so we can keep track of which individuals are coming back on a yearly basis to the different areas that we study here in Australia. And so we do this every year, and we spend about 3 months up in Hervey Bay, and then we come down to Eden, and so we use the same methods in each location. That way we can compare the data from both sites. Basically, once we get an accurate estimate of how many whales we're seeing, the individuals that we see in a year or a season, then we can use that information to estimate how many there are over the years, and get an estimate of the population that is surviving today. We don't yet know all there is to know about the animals, and so they are recovering, but there are small populations throughout the world, and they do intermix here in Eden in particular, and so we're interested in looking at where the animals here in Eden are actually coming from, and so that's part of what we're looking at. And so if whaling or some other threat was to impact these smaller populations, we would see a decimation of them very quickly.
The job of photographing their flukes and lateral body patterns is undertaken by Uliana Bonilla.
Personally, I think they're incredible creatures. Any kind of marine life I'm fascinated with, but humpback whales, I think that just their sheer size and how aware they are of their body underneath the water. So you may think that they're these big, huge, clumsy things, but they're incredibly aware of their body and their surroundings underwater. Obviously, if you're in a smaller boat, as we are up in Hervey Bay, it's a bit more awesome. You are much closer and you really get a sense of the size of the animal. So a calf is about the size of your boat that you're in. Well, this was in Hervey Bay and we were in a Naiad. It was about 17-foot rigid hull inflatable. And we were on a mom and a calf pod. And the mothers and calves there, or whales in general, they're very curious and they're not skittish of the boats at all. And the mother just happened to surface directly underneath our boat. Don't know if it was intentional or not, but she just surfaced right underneath and kind of lifted us up slightly, went back down, and then swam away and surfaced again several feet away from the boat.
The time the researchers have to identify and record these humpbacks is short. The whales will pass through Eden in a matter of days, completing their migration cycle by swimming for another 2 months back to their Antarctic feeding grounds.
TravelOz.
Next time we travel Oz, the diverse wildlife of Kangaroo Island. A very different view of Australia's national capital. Australia's strongest man takes on a road train. And the two Tims explore Australia's east coast. And that is TravelOz. I'm Greg Granger. Happy travels.